I recently made a video called The Polytheism Made into Christianity. It's mainly about the Marian cult. Since I've made that video, I've discovered some new things, and you can watch that video, I would hope, in light of this one. First of all, the Proto-Evangelion of James is indeed a Gnostic gospel. Clement of Alexandria is quoting it and calling it the gospel according to the Egyptians. It was circulating around the Theban and Libyan provinces. Hippolytus and Epiphanes, and it's through them that we have some of the fragments, directly blamed its heretical character. As for quoting from it, know also that Justin Martyr was in error quoting from the Gospel of Peter.
Justin Martyr accepts as gospel the story of Jesus being strong like a giant to run his course around the world. Where the hell is that story? What was he reading back then?
He must have been thinking that that's something he read in the Gospel somewhere and didn't realize on time. I talked about how the perpetual virginity of Mary, it seemed, was invented by the Gnostics. I then passed through into the church's beliefs through the loose hand of Origen of Alexandria, quoting the Proto-Evangelion of James in his commentary of the Gospel of Matthew. Now it was shown to me by a Catholic, well done there, Origen's teacher seems to be rather the one who taught him this, and that was Hippolytus of Rome, disciple of Irenaeus, who by the way condemned the Gnostics' beliefs. Hippolytus is quoted, this is the thing that the Catholic guy sent me, calling Mary all holy ever virgin. Tangentially to that, I also have a reservation as to the meaning of this. He says it seems to mean she was innocent and was always a virgin, and so insisting on the definite virgin conception of her son Jesus, and had a theory as to whether ever virgin was a phrase that used to mean that she was a virgin before and became a term that meant ever virgin in the future tense, leaving speculations. So concede this to the Catholics and those agreeing with them. The ever-virginity of Mary does not first appear in the Gnostic writings. It's still possible it's their invention because of how into it they were. Somebody mentioned, why would God put his son in a dirty woman? This is actually the reason why. In the Gospel of Matthew at the beginning, you see that some of the mothers of Jesus are mentioned in the genealogy, which usually it only mentions the fathers. And it goes out of its way to mention certain mothers. Now, learn and realize that one of Jesus' foremothers is Isaiah's daughter. It could be worth mentioning. These are the mothers mentioned: Tamar, Rahab, and Ruth. This is the reason why they're mentioned. You can sort of make it out. Sense that there are evil people who are in his family now that they're included in the gospel of redemption. Why not have them in his genealogy? Here's another point of the opinions of the side, or the proposition of Mary's ever-virginity, because I was told that actually the most sound in faith early church writers, known as church fathers, actually were in disagreement about these issues. In the massive session where Sam Shamoun with William Albrecht about the doctrines that I referred to as polytheism built into Christianity, which I still suspect, Sam Shamoun makes his possible, most powerful point that the church doesn't go heretical and unpreserved from error, and to suppose it is blasphemy of Jesus, calling him a failure since he is creating the church. A very good point. The one that made me fear the most, personally. I don't think, however, that we need to maintain most of what the claiming church believed has to be true. It still stands, the church does exist, and Jesus sustained it, if this is the case. Anyhow, another thing to apprehend, I think, is that the perpetual virginity of Mary is only a mistake and not heresy. To my point now, William Albrecht then says there are no church fathers who deny Mary was always a virgin or had other children. That's what he said. And he said that only the heretical Arianists said it. Now, just like we have to concede it might actually not be the case, there was a time when only the heretical Gnostics were in favour of your belief. It isn't true there was a time where only the heretical Arianists held to ours. I'll show you now. Tertullian in the 200s. The belief Mary had other children is not a binding opinion of the faith, and there was no controversy. Victorinius of Patau in the 270s, and he died at the beginning of the 4th century as a martyr by Diocletian, banning Christianity. In the 4th century then, Helvidius, who was the one I wanted to know, Jerome was debating making his affirmation. And he references Tertullian and Victorinius. Bonosus. Jovinian also, close friend of Ambrosius, and Ambrosius was advising him to accept the church's decisions. They were all condemned as heretics and were not Arianists. Another thing that I've learnt since then, thanks to the Catholic convention that Sam Shamoun was filming, that Nestorius came back to the position regarding the nature of Christ and clarified himself. The doctrines known as Nestorianism are no longer imputable to Nestorius himself, and the Catholic Church ended up acknowledging him as a Catholic, and he was part of the Catholic Church at his death, and even wrote a book. As doing so, however, he's still reticent to the appellation and term Theotokos.